Okay, I guess I should get this started before the sun sets as I'm using the light from the window right now for my lighting aesthetic. My name is Abby, and I decided I was feeling uninspired, so I am starting a YouTube channel where I'm going to just talk. Um, yeah, this is new for me. Yeah, I have a podcast where I analyze the news, and I also like to write. I also have a full-time job. I also like to hang out, and I have been feeling so uninspired recently, and the only things that I've been able to get inspiration from is watching other people's video essays about whether it be about just general life, educational things, tech. I was joking around with a friend of mine that I was going to start posting on social media more often, and she said I should do TikTok, except I don't really like short form content right now because it's ruining my attention span. So, because I'm not even taking it in, I figure might as well make content that I would want to participate in as a viewer as well. I kind of have just been spitballing random topics and conversations to myself and to a select few friends. I think a common theme right now is feeling lost in your 20s. The only thing that I have that shows my credibility for this is my age. I'm 24. And the fact that I am away from home, I guess, could also show a little bit of credibility in what I'm going to be talking about across the country, actually. Sorry, I have my notes on my phone because I've never done this before, so bear with me. I am going to talk about navigating being lost in your 20s. First of all, I want to say that I think being lost is a wonderful, amazing thing because it leads to so many new beginnings. So many. Sometimes beginnings aren't ones that we expect at all, but sometimes they're just the most amazing things that you wouldn't even think possible if you weren't searching for yourself to begin with. The reason I'm bringing up this topic to begin with actually is I was just visiting my college town, and it's currently May 2026. I graduated in May 2024, so it's been exactly 2 years next weekend that I will have graduated undergrad. And I think a major part of feeling lost in your 20s, if you went that traditional route of going to school and then undergrad right after, and having been in school for X amount of years, however long you did your undergrad for. Yeah, so I was recently visiting my old college town, and I was passing by this spot with a friend of mine where I remember it so vividly, sitting at this beach on one of my very last nights in my college town, in my graduation dress, in the sand, in my heels, with my stole on, with my decor on, whatever I was wearing that night. And it was nighttime, maybe nearly 2 a.m. I had just gotten home from hitting the town with my friends, my roommates, one last time. And I was sitting there alone, looking at the beach, the ocean, contemplating my life, and telling myself that I will never, ever get out of it. I will never get over my college life. I will never get over the people that I get to spend every single day with. I will never get out of this funk. And I just remember it so vividly, thinking to myself, you will always feel stuck, and there's no way to ever get out of it. Anyways, I was, like I said, just in my college town, past that exact same spot, and I was almost transported 2 years back in my past, except there's a difference now. I feel lost right now. I'm a 24-year-old now. I feel lost, but I know that there's going to be a wave of change where I get to be found again. I'm not in that same space where I look at myself and I look at the life I'm having, I look at the life that I built for myself and I look at the next transitionary period of my life, and I'm not thinking to myself that I'm going to be lost forever. And I think that's a really important aspect of the good part of being lost in your 20s is knowing that something more is going to come of it. It's crazy because that was only 2 years ago, but I feel like it feels like a million since. I think I've just met so many different people and took my life in so many different ways since then that I'm no longer scared of being lost. And the good versus the bad feeling of being lost is genuinely just in the way that you frame it yourself. Because arguably, I could be more lost now. People could look at me right now and say, "You're 2 years out of college. Why don't you have your dream job? Why don't you have this? Why are you still looking in the weeds for something different?" Versus, at least when you graduate, you have the excuse of being lost. You just graduated college. You have so much time. You have all of this in front of you. You still have your resources that you're able to use. Not everyone is employed right out of college. You could arguably say that when I was lost, that was the right timeline of being lost. But I think there really isn't a right timeline for that. And the reframing aspect of it is, I think, kind of the thesis of this whole video essay. I don't know. Video, talk, chit chat. I've never done this before, so like I said, bear with me. I think I'm going to go into the different frameworks of how you can frame this mindset from looking at something half empty to half full, because I genuinely feel like that's the only way you're going to experience and navigate being lost in the most positive way, especially as someone in your mid 20s, who I guess I'm aiming this for because that's me right now. But I'd like to think that you could be lost at any age. I'd like to think that this mindset that I have right now doesn't ever have to change. Like I could be 45 or 60 or in my 30s, whenever, and know that I'll never be stuck anywhere because being lost is a good thing. The first thing I'm going to talk about is being lost in your work life. I have had many conversations recently with peers my age, friends, people around my age, maybe older, younger, and how to grapple with not knowing if what you're doing is your dream, and how to grapple with not having a dream in general. I've actually had this conversation with three different people at this point. Shout out to them, they know who they are. And I like to think that you having a dream is something that could happen at any time. I like to think about my younger self and how many things I've tried and how many things have stuck, how many things haven't stuck, and how the older you get doesn't mean that you can't learn a new skill. I used to resent myself in a jack of all trades, master of none way because I thought that I was trying too much and I thought that I would never really find a true passion, whether that be in my hobbies, whether that be in my creative life, whether that be in my work life. Honestly, that's why this YouTube channel is born. It's coming from a place of, oh, I'm feeling stuck, let me try something new. And to that extent, when I talk to my past self, when I read past diary entries, I want to just tell myself that I'd rather try out multiple things than be frozen waiting to start. I think the anticipation of waiting for something to happen, yes, you can do so. I think waiting for change is only natural, and I think there's a good way to do this as well. We're going to get into that a little bit too. But I don't think you can sit around and kind of wish for something to happen without putting at least 1% effort into it. Any percent effort is effort. It sounds so silly saying that out loud, but it's something that I think young people have to grapple with a lot. Like they think, I used to be so jealous of the people who knew what they wanted to be or knew what they wanted to do when they're a little kid onwards and they kept with that. And I'm not saying that that's not an amazing thing because it is, and I'm so proud of all the people who have done what they've wanted to do. But you're allowed to change, evolve. You're allowed to do whatever you want to do and try as many millions of things that you want to try if that's in the scope of what you're able to do, money-wise, time-wise, whatever. You're allowed to do that and you should do that. And I think that when you feel lost and you don't have a dream, I think the only way that you can really find one is just by doing things that you love. Like right now, I needed a space to be creative. I thought, what are my options? And then I wrote up a little script, and now I'm speaking to my computer in the common room of my apartment. I think another thing I like to do is to talk it out until the horse is dead. What's that phrase? Beating the dead horse. I am a master of that. Talking it out with yourself, with friends, with family, professionally even, is one of the number one things you can do. Even with yourself, like the amount of times that I've exploded on a journal or to my voice memos, I used to do this all the time. I would just talk and talk and talk into my voice memos app. And it's something I'm grateful that I have now, honestly, because I get to look back at what like my 17, 18, 19-year-old self was thinking, and I get to look at her and kind of talk to her in the past and be like, well, this is what I was looking for back then when I was navigating being lost as a teenager. Here's what I can take from those lessons and move it onwards to become more adult, more mature, like the older I get. And another thing with maturity is everyone is on a different pace of life. It's funny that quote, like, act your age. I don't think, especially in your 20s, with the timeline that we're in right now, of everyone being able to do different things at different times, is there even an age to act? I think not. I'm categorizing this as work life, but it also means like creative side projects, your passion, whatever. You're going to find your passion. You will. And being lost in that doesn't mean that you're never going to, that you're taking a break or anything. I think that in hindsight, you're going to miss this time of your life. At least that's what I tell myself. And no matter where you go, who you're with, what age you are, your dreams can change and your dreams will come to you because it's in you. There's nothing, no one who can take that away from you. No amount of feeling lost, no amount of feeling purposeless will take that from you if you're doing the things that you love. Because that's where inspiration is born from. Okay, now I'm going to talk about what it feels like to be lost in your lack of relationships or maybe within your relationship. And I feel like I just need to give a disclaimer here that I don't have too many experiences in very serious long-term relationships. However, I think I have great experiences in long-term friendships, and I'd like to consider that my friendships have a certain level of romantic love that can be equated to a serious long-term partnership. I'm gonna frame this in a way of kind of being in a new city because I think that's where most of my experience comes from. Since graduating, I've lived in technically four different cities, which is kind of crazy to say. Um, yeah, short term for sure. Long term, the longest term I've ever lived in post grad is right now, which is a little bit over a year in Washington, D.C. When you feel lost because of a lack of community, maybe in your friendships or relationships, or because you're away from your family, I think that's something that I didn't consider was different between college and post grad. I went to college a little closer to my family too, so that might have been the reason why. But I feel like I never ever felt homesick when I was in college because there was so much stimulation going on. There was my friends who became my chosen family. There was a community that you're interacting with every single day who have so much in common with you because they're going to school, they're in your classes, they're maybe in your extracurriculars. And I just want to say to the people who say that it's difficult to make friends post grad, you're completely valid. Don't let anyone tell you that you're lost and being alone is your own fault because there's no guide to that. And I think it is so much easier in college to do so when everyone's on the same page. Something that I've adapted when I feel lost in a new city. First of all, when I get to a new city, there is no other adrenaline like it for myself. I love the idea of being in a new city and getting lost there and meeting people and ending up in some random restaurant or a bar and or grocery store and just talking to the people in that community. Like it is just a feeling like no other and a feeling that I'll always be chasing, especially when I'm traveling and stuff like that. Like I love going to like the local grocery stores. I love asking where people are at because I'm I think I get a lot of my energy from other people. And I think that's another thing when you're making friendships to be cognizant of, like where you get your energy from. You'll want to say yes more. Maybe you won't because it's scary. I think that saying yes can literally change your life, whether that be in relationships, friendships, um, partnerships, jobs, like anything. Saying yes can get you in places you didn't even have any idea that you would be in. Meet some of the favorite people that you wouldn't even know are your favorite people yet if you hadn't said yes. Obviously, we're taking this with a grain of salt and to trust your intuition, but especially when you feel lost, saying yes to new experiences and new people can help you discover the pieces of yourself that you didn't even know existed because you're trying out all these new things. I think, like I said, interacting with people and saying hello to your like local grocery store cashier or something, reminding long distance friends you love them. That's another thing I think some people might forget. I think it's really easy to see what's right in front of you and be really focused on trying to cultivate those friendships in this new place. But if you want to build long-lasting friendships that'll support you even in your darkest and most lost times of your life, I think sending a text every once in a while, a phone call, setting up a chat with your long distance friends is also super, super important. Maybe even people you haven't spoken to in a while. Sometimes being lost means you get to rediscover the pieces of yourself and the people you no longer talk to. Sometimes being lost means that you get to speak to people who you don't see on a regular basis and you need to be reminded who you are. I think that every single person you've met, especially the people you consider great friends who you used to talk to when you're younger, have gotten the chance to have a piece of yourself. Like we're all that's like the point of long-term relationships, I feel like, and friendships is getting to learn from one another, getting to experience the world side by side, having people witness your life. Like that is so, I can't even say like how important it is to have people be witnesses to your life and getting to go back and talk to these people as a reminder of like who you are as a person when you're feeling lost. I think that's one of the most precious things that you could do. And obviously, sometimes to leave behind your past is a good thing, but other times when you feel ready, revisiting it is the healthiest thing you could possibly do. Like, I think closure in a different chapter of your life might be the reason why you're feeling lost as well. Like, I definitely have experiences like that where I think that I need closure somewhere and I'm too afraid, but I have to push past that fear in doing so. I'm going to talk a little bit about how I've made new friends and new communities in different cities. I was once asked by a friend how to make friends, especially living in a new city. Um, and I think it has more to do with putting yourself out there and kind of ties back to feeling lost in your purpose when you're doing things you love. I think finding people who have common interests with the things you love can really help. Finding inspiration from people around you and the community around you is just so the key to living a life where you feel connected to yourself, but not only to not only yourself, but the people around you. So, to make friends in a new city that you might feel a little lost in, I think that signaling you want to be approached is as big as approaching someone. It's really easy to go out into the world and think to yourself that you look really friendly or you are someone who's putting themselves out there. Body language has a lot to do with it. I think, like, for example, putting out the vibe that you want to be talked to has to do with like not putting AirPods in, for example, like when you're out, or telling people what you like about them if you notice it. I always make it a point that if I'm seeing a stranger for the very first time, um, I want to tell them that I like their skirt or that they're doing a really good job at whatever. I don't know. I'm struggling to think of an example right now, but I'd like to think that I'm a people person, and I'd like to think that small compliments like that can make someone's day because it definitely makes mine. And I'll always remember the smallest compliments that I receive, like, especially from a stranger, because they have nothing to gain from telling me that, for the most part. Making the first move, approaching people, you can sit at home and think to yourself that you're not building a community or you feel lost. And another part of it is, are you trying your hardest to put yourself out there? I think a lot of the time it's really difficult to put yourself out there, which is so valid, but I think making that first move because somebody else won't. It's the number one advice I would give anyone who's trying to make new friends. There's been so many friends I've made just because I've made the first move. Kind of just have to operate on this thought of like, you're never going to see them again unless you say something. If you want to hang out with somebody, you have to let them know because no one can read your mind. You have no idea. Like, they have no idea if you're new to the city. They have no idea that you're feeling lost. They have no idea you're trying to build a community for yourself unless you open that up for them. If you give people a way in, then they could decide, hey, like, yeah, I would love to hang out with you, or not, and that's okay too. I truly, truly believe that with every person that you talk to, put yourself out there to, you're doing something for yourself. You're gaining exposure to types of people you want to hang out with. You're looking for pieces of yourself in other people. You're looking to share your dreams. You're looking to go to the grocery shopping with somebody, a late night ice cream. People crave community in this way of like I call them down people. I want down people around me. I want people to just like want to hang out. I want people to do mundane things with me. I don't want to use energy to hang out with people. The only way to do that is to grow that from the very beginning. Every down person was once a stranger. When you are feeling lost, it's also really easy to distract yourself from it in different ways. Like keep saying, being lost in a good way is about reframing your mindset to think to yourself, there is going to be a change coming. I just need to invest my time in the things that I like to do, and something will happen for me. Believing that too is a whole other ball game. I don't think I don't think I truly believed this until maybe I'll give it like 7 months ago. I don't know why I'm saying seven, it just feels like the right number right now. Like I said in the beginning of the video, I used to think that change wasn't going to happen for me and that I'd be stuck in a place forever, and that was all about my attitude. Another thing that I did for a really long time was try to distract myself from this feeling of purposelessness and feeling lost. And I think it's easy to throw yourself into one aspect of your life when another feels like it is on fire. Lord knows that I've done this a million and one times. Blowing up one aspect of your life in hopes that it'll distract you from a different aspect of your life is definitely not the answer. I don't think that it is a good reset or a good catalyst for change, but often instead feels pretty self-destructive. I find that hyperfixating on one part of your life can really push destruction into the different aspects of your life if that's something that you're choosing to do. I guess I'll give you like a tangible example of this. Like, if you are really lost in your work life and you throw yourself into like your relationship life and you're trying all these different things but not focusing on the part that you actually feel lost in, there's a tendency to self-destruct in that, which will bleed obviously into your work life. For example, distracting yourself with social media or something like that when it's not healthy for you, when you should be focusing on other things. Doom scrolling instead of focusing on the change that you want to make. Like, if you know the steps, like, all I gotta do is apply for a job, all I gotta do is get on the dating apps, all I gotta do is step outside and meet people in my new city. All I have to do is make the change I know I gotta make. It's really, really easy to distract yourself from that by torturing yourself on social media, by distracting yourself with things that are easier to do. I say that being lost is good and it can lead to a catalyst for all these amazing things, but I never thought it was easy. When I look back on the times and things that have changed and I see myself coming out of it, it feels so easy in hindsight. Of course it does. But those little distractions along the way can really, really put a wrench in things. Here are some questions I like to ask myself when I find myself floating towards a distraction instead of maybe focusing on the aspect of my life that I feel most lost in, or lost in general in. Let me distinguish between a good and bad distraction. The ways that distractions can be good is by asking myself things like, is it stimulating me mentally? Is it helping me become someone I want to be? Am I becoming someone more full of life, full of love, full of happiness from this distraction? Or is it an easy way out? Is it turning my brain off so that I don't have to think about the bad thoughts, the bad parts about being lost? Am I surrounding myself with healthy distractions or bad distractions, which also could be subjective? I think different things can be healthy for you based on who you are as a person, based on what aspects of your life you're feeling the most lost in, or if you're just feeling lost in general. Are you trying to avoid this feeling? Does it make you uncomfortable? The feeling should be uncomfortable, honestly. I don't know anyone who says that they're lost and thinks to themselves, yeah, that was super easy. I think the most important part of that was just that you do not have to blow up your life when you feel lost. You do not have to self-sabotage when you feel lost. You can actually do the exact same things you're doing every single day and change 1% of it. And I can guarantee you with time that something will come of it. Bringing it back to being in my mid 20s and feeling lost is that there's no straightforward path in your 20s. Sometimes you only feel lost because the people around you seem like they've got it all figured out. The moment that you realize people having it all figured out is a myth, the moment that your life gets tenfold better. There is no such thing as somebody who has it all figured out. There's a lot of wisdom and lessons that people have learned, and you could take advice from people. But to model yourself off of somebody who you perceive as having it all figured out, who's your age, who's posting a million things about all the successful things they're doing in the world, all the places they're going, all the people that they love, and the community that they have. Have, maybe they do have it all figured out. But for you to compare yourself is a thief of joy. Comparison is a thief of joy, is what I'm trying to say. There are ways that I do and don't deal with comparison that could be relevant to your feeling lost and what's relevant to my feeling lost as well. For example, ignoring a problem until it goes away. I would like to say that this has worked for me. It never has. I do not recommend it. That's all I have to say about that. If I ignore a problem long enough, it might seem like it's going away, but I guess this goes back to distractions in that I am distracting myself with a different problem or creating a different problem for me to solve in order for me not to have to think about this current problem. Doesn't mean it goes away, it just means it kind of boils with time and I get to go back to it later and it's a tenfold bigger beast than it was before. Things that I do when it comes to comparison. I'd like to think that I am way better when it comes to comparison now at 24 than I ever was in my entire life. I think in my teens, I was a very jealous, envious person. In college, too, people getting successes was so hard for me to deal with, even if it wasn't even something I was a part of, which is so silly and crazy to admit. But nowadays, I am so happy for the people who have success in their life. Like, I'm so proud of the people who are in love. I'm so proud of people who have had friendships for longer than 10 years. I'm so amazed at the things that people are doing on that I see on LinkedIn or on Instagram, the places people are going. Like, I think that's so wonderful. And it took a really, really, really embarrassingly long time for me to kind of reckon this, I guess. Challenging myself to live in a problem and adapt to a glass half full mindset. And why does it hurt to compare myself to someone I perceive as more successful is exactly the reason and way that I've gotten over this. Am I looking at someone's post thinking to myself, I wish I was them? Then what is the post? Is the post of them in Greece? Is the post them talking about their job? Is the post them with their boyfriend? You kind of have to look at someone's social media if you're comparing it to them and think to yourself, how do I feel that in relation to myself? Because you're not actually angry at the person who's posting that. You're not actually comparing yourself to them in that way. Maybe you are, but I just mean that you're only comparing yourself to that person in that way because you're looking at a reflection of what you could become. I ask myself, how do I feel looking at? Is it someone on vacation? So does that mean I need to go to Italy right now? Do I wish I was a social media manager? Do I wish that I was physically as strong as someone that they're posting about their half marathon? Using comparison as a trigger for realizing what you want for yourself and taking it on as a good thing for a catalyst for change of what you can be is the only way that I've been able to get over that hump in my life. Because, like I said, getting lost can be a wonderful thing. Getting lost and just scrolling and scrolling and comparing yourself without making any real action from that is a stagnant thing. Like, you don't want to do that. You're allowed to scroll, you're allowed to look at people, you're allowed to admire people's life and set goals for yourself. But the part about it that you can't do is just sit there and just say, I wish I was doing that. I wish I was doing that. I wish I was doing that. Like, you have the power in you to do that. You just kind of have to use that comparison to discover what makes you want that. Like, how does that apply to your life? How do I make that something that I can aspire to be? How do I make this feeling of jealousy or enviousness go away because that's not their fault? That I'm projecting this feeling onto them because that's something I want. I'm going to touch a little bit about taking an unconventional track when you feel lost. There's some like influencers who will tell you to like quit your job or go the creative route or whatever, and I think it's so completely valid. And I think that there's fear in doing so because of the status quo of your peers. I think it ties along with not comparing yourself to other people who are in their 20s because everyone's on a different path. Like once you graduate, like college or even high school sometimes, like it's socially acceptable to do all these different things based on your track of life. Like no one is on the same track at this point. So why would you compare yourself in a race when they're on a completely different track? There's this concept I like to talk about of like this social suicide that you feel. This is not new. I don't even know if it's like something people coin, but anyways, it's this concept of like, I want to do this path, but I'm scared that people are going to judge me. Is doing something different exciting to me, or does it make me anxious? I think a little bit of nervousness is good. A little bit of both. It should be exciting. It should be nervous to break the status quo of like what you think the traditional way is. Because another thing about being lost is there's so many different paths that you can take. But if you let that fear of being judged or fear of being different stop you from it, then you'll never know what it's like to succeed on the other side of that, or you'll never know if you're going to be able to find yourself on the other side of that. I'm always struggling with this. I'm always trying to be somebody who doesn't care what people think of her, but at the same time, I think I get a lot of my energy from the people around me and being a little bit of a people pleaser, so I'm really working on that in how do I re-energize myself? How do I socialize without caring what people think of me in a way that in a way outside of like being a nice person or being somebody people want to be around in a way that actually makes me influence my decisions when it comes to, I don't know, my personality or my job or being embarrassed talking about something you're pursuing. Like, I don't ever want to be embarrassed talking about like a book that I'm writing or this YouTube channel I'm starting or the places I want to go just because it might seem unrealistic at the time. To conclude this little episode, maybe I'll call this channel Abby's Daily Apple. It's an inside joke. I'm going to talk about how when I've felt the most lost in my life and what it has given me, I've ended up across seas in different countries. I've ended up with new opportunities. I've been in rooms I never thought I wanted to be in. I've met some of my favorite people who I wouldn't even know would become my favorite people. I've done new hobbies I didn't know that I would grow to love, different foods that are now my staples, new places I've called home, places that have always been home, re-becoming an important pillar to the foundation of who I am. Getting to come back home with fresh eyes, looking at the people I've grown up with and realizing how new they are too, because I don't know the adult version of them. I'd like to think that every single person gets a second chance in my life if they want it. I'd like to think that people will give me a second chance too if I want it, if I want to cross paths again with somebody, not judging people again, giving out multiple chances. Sometimes, sometimes being lost is just waiting for that next wave of change to happen. But like I said, it doesn't mean having to wait stagnantly. It just means having to do everything you love in the moment or the place you're in because your wave of change can happen at literally any time. So this might be the very last day that you're going to feel this way. This may be the very last moment that you're ever going to be in this place, in this work, in this relationship, in this friendship, in this city alone. What would you do if you knew it was your last day doing that? Certainly something different. Because when you're lost, you become desperate to be found, which you can look at in a glass half full or a glass half empty way. Would you rather be lost and stuck behind a million closed doors, or every single door is wide open? I don't know. I'd prefer the wide open one. So it's okay to be lost. There is no linear way to be found. A lot of the time, being lost can be sad or hard, and it's because it is. That's not a prank, that's not an illusion that you're putting on yourself. Whatever you're going through, no matter how small you might think of it in 5 years or even 1 month, it is hard, and you're allowed to think it's hard. But being lost is also the period right before everything is about to change, oftentimes for the better. And when you're experiencing that change, like I said, in whatever many time, you're going to look back to right now and see that it was in front of you the entire time because like once you're out of the maze, it feels like you should have known the path the entire time. Being lost is okay and fun and exciting and scary and sad and irritating. You're going to change, or you'll stay the same, or you'll go in waves of being lost and being found again. But from what I know, the person at the end of the maze, even after all this time of feeling lost, no matter what version of you it is, will still always be you. Okay, gang, how did I do? That was my first video essay. Um, I don't know where this is gonna go. Also, I don't know if I said my name. My name's Abby. I don't really know what I'm gonna call this channel, so we'll see. Water break.